As artificial intelligence continues to advance, we are seeing its integration into various industries, from healthcare to finance to transportation. With this rapid development, there is a need to discuss the challenges, opportunities, and potential impact of AI technology on society. Our panel of experts will provide insights into the latest advancements, ethical considerations, and practical implications of AI, and explore its role in shaping the future of humanity. Join us as we delve into this fascinating and increasingly important topic.
Thank you, Rich. What an exciting topic. I cannot wait to dive in with our guest today, but you might find it interesting to know that the lead-in that you just read for this in-depth segment was generated by an AI, ChatGPT. What is ChatGPT? Well, these gentlemen are going to tell us. I'd like to introduce you to them right now. We have Dr. Chris Crick, who is an associate professor of computer science at Oklahoma State University. And we have Greg Starling, who runs the innovation lab at Tailwind, which is located right here in Oklahoma. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, the first question is going to go to you, Dr. Crick. Tell us how you're involved first with AI, artificial intelligence technology.
Sure. So I do a lot of things. I run the robotic cognition lab here at Oklahoma State, and we do a lot of work with robots, and that involves AI stuff like planning and coordination and understanding humans and things like that. We also do a lot of work with explainable AI. So AI systems, machine learning systems tend to give us answers that may be correct or not, but we don't really know how they got there. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of work on devising systems that can lead someone through the reasoning process. So explain why we're making the AI is making the decisions that they're making.
Greg, how about you? What is your experience with AI? A lot, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in technology now for about 25 years. In my role as the head of innovation lab at Tailwind, about 3 years ago, we really started getting into the large language models and trying to understand those. We actually acquired a company that really helped us kind of move in that direction about a year and a half ago. And for the last year, we have lived in this ChatGPT kind of world.
Chris, we're going to come back to you. Explain what that work that you guys just spoke about means to someone like me, the layperson.
Systems that can help us to generate work is basically the idea that the creators of systems like ChatGPT envision at the moment. It's not good from a lot of things, and it has a lot of problems, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But one thing that a system like ChatGPT can do is just generate sort of coherent prose. It is good at, for people that have a hard time just putting words on a page, it will put all the words on the page. Mm-hmm. It may be wrong, it may be fallacious, it may be boring, but boy, is it words on a page. So you can take that and turn it into, a reasonable, interesting bit of writing. Takes some effort, but if the bottleneck is just getting stuff written, then a system like this can really help with that.
Greg, since we're on ChatGPT, let's talk about the writing issue or answer. We have Google to answer questions, and you can even ask Siri. Is Siri a form of AI, or is that just a computer speaking answers to you? What is the difference between AI and these other programs that we have been using?
I mean, I would say that Siri is and Alexa, any digital assistant like that is a form of AI. What is different with some of these large language models like ChatGPT is their ability to generate content for you in a different way. It can go beyond just answering a question for you into things like brainstorming ideas for you. I think as Dr. Crick said, the blank page concept, I think we as creators or creators tend to romanticize a blank page and all the endless possibilities. What these systems can do is get you off of that blank page and get you well on your way to actually creating content.
So it can give you ideas. It can provoke thought in you. The fact that you're not provoking thought in the machine is provoking thought in you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. it's really, really great at being able to brainstorm a lot of ideas really rapidly.
So I'm going to come back to you, Chris, because one of the things I did read in doing research on this is, folks can use it for essays. Well, you're a college professor. How do you know that your students, I saw a term that the era of the essay is over. Students can have computers write their essays for them. Now, what do you do, Professor?
Well, it cannot write good essays, and it can't, obviously, cheating is a problem, and people cheat and therefore don't get the benefit of the point of writing essays in a college class, which is to learn how to generate a cogent argument and string words to get together in a way that allows you to think deeply about a topic. But the essays that are generated by ChatGPT are, first of all, have no necessary relation to fact. ChatGPT or systems like that they're trying to produce coherent language, but coherent doesn't mean true. They are built out of basically looking at large amounts of text collected from the internet, and they are trying to write predictable text, and they're doing it by basically looking at, okay, this word, how often does it show up in the context of this word? If that's often, I'm going to put them together too. And it has a lot of words at its disposal, but it doesn't know anything about making an argument or introducing truth. Sometimes it gets that by accident because true things happen to co-occur in its training text. But it doesn't.
Is there a way for you to tell the difference?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is very easy when you start interacting with a large language model like this to realize, oh, it is telling me things that sort of sound like they hang together, but they're just not true. It will make up citations to papers. It will make up facts that aren't actually that an expert can, a non-expert can be fooled because they tend to sound coherent, but it doesn't bear any relation to reality.
Greg, I want to ask you, there was kind of a scary moment with the Bing AI and a reporter. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with it.
Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Basically, a reporter was using Bing's AI. And so I actually talked to the people who run that lab at Microsoft multiple times a week. And they were a little embarrassed by it, candidly. But I think to get people who aren't familiar with it, basically a reporter was able to push the AI in a way to actually act like the AI was falling in love and almost went with the reporter, had some sentient type thoughts. What I would say to that is we are still very early days, and I can use a hammer. I can go take a hammer and smash a vase, or I can take a hammer to build a house. And I think absolutely, if you want to get your article published and get people talking about it, like us talking about it, pushing these AIs to weird places will definitely get you published. But I think what you're doing is you're using AI in a wrong way. And
you think the reporter did it?
Oh, 100%. Well, I don't think they made it up, but I think the reporter pushed it in a way that's not a normal way to push it to try to create this type of a result, which is absolutely fine, absolutely fair. What the teams will do is figure out how to shut those down and figure out how to close some of those loopholes. But right now, there's a lot of those loopholes. Dr. Crick mentioned there's a lot of ways to push it in some weird ways. We'll figure out how to fix that. But it just like you can use, like I said, like you could use a saw to cut a board in half, or you could use a saw to cut your couch in half. AI is a tool just like anything else.
And another point I did want to touch on with you especially is, can AI technology be used in a political arena?
Of course, it can be
negatively or positively.
Yes, negatively or positively. As far as what we've talked about so far, I would probably disagree to an extent with Dr. Crick. I think the quality of the outputs, oftentimes the quality of the input. If you're not getting good results, it's because you're probably prompting the languages poorly. We generate articles, blog posts for the people that use our system that pass every AI check that you could possibly run and pass it as human written. He is 100% right in terms of, we call it hallucinating. They'll make junk up. But you can get around that a lot by prompting it to use specific authors, specific books, things like that. So as book XYZ explains, can you give me more information about a certain thing? I don't think it would do really good at college level, honestly, but at a high school level, essays, we can generate essays that nobody would be able to know, and it'll pass every AI check. From a political point of view, yeah, I think that's a real concern. The ability to create content in mass that could influence large portions of society is a real problem. We've seen it already at a level influence elections in the past, and all this has done is make that a lot easier, a lot more accessible.
I hear a lot about bots, and I know they've been around a lot, bots on like Twitter. I still don't fully know what a bot is. And maybe it's because I'm the older generation. I don't, is that like an AI, a program, an algorithm? Is that the same thing or completely different?
I mean, bots can do a lot of things. Bots is kind of a generic term that people use for many different things. Oftentimes when you're talking about bots influencing elections, they're just kind of fake people, for lack of a better way to put it, that are able to post on social media, but they're posting from large repositories of data. And so in this case, bots are not humans, they're robots that are trying to pass off as human.
Isn't
and
that
so you
an
can look
AI?
like there is there's some level of AI, certainly, and there's some level of human interaction. And what's kind of scary about it is you can even use it to create, you can have bots having conversations with each other, which oftentimes is AI. So it looks like there's a lot of conversation. It looks like there's a lot going on in a particular area about a particular subject. But oftentimes that can be a player trying to influence a certain area, trying to think there's more dissension or there's more conversation than there actually is.
So Chris, another point, it was going that there can be bias in AIs or bots, or it's a little difficult for me to wrap my mind around, and I think I just have to accept the terms and then learn as I go along, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, so these large language models are trained on large swaths of texts from the internet, basically. I think OpenAI making ChatGPT has a corpus that's about 4 or 5 terabytes of data. And that is, Wikipedia articles and Reddit posts and, just everything that happens on the internet. And a lot of that is not necessarily representative of humanity's best self. So it is very easy to release these large language models into the world and quickly discover that they can easily be guided towards spouting really hateful language and things like that. ChatGPT appears to have, the engineers behind it have appeared to try to put a lot of guardrails against that, but those are easily circumvented. It's also the case that when we're using machine learning to try to predict behavior, it's on the data that it finds relationships in may be data that comes from systemic bias in data and history. It can easily learn, for example, to be racist because there's a lot of history of unequal outcomes based on a lot of the country's history.
Sounds like raising a child.
And so it can very easily detect not necessarily wrong or spurious relationships, but relationships that are out of context and can lead it to just discriminatory and things like that as well.
Can there be some scary aspects to that, Greg? I'll come back to you, or Chris, if you want to stay on topic. Can there be some scary aspects to that? You and I had to bring up Terminator, and I couldn't remember the name, and you said Skynet, worst nightmares. We have all these AI programs now streaming on streaming channels, over-the-top channels, and I'm fascinated by it in the science fiction story realm. Does that bear any reality to what we're talking about?
There's some, and I think just kind of to piggyback a little bit on what Dr. Crick was talking about in terms of biases, one thing that he mentioned was these engineers are putting guardrails. One of the problems is those guardrails can also introduce a set of biases, depending on what they feel is appropriate or not appropriate. I know OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT and some other language models, has said they're going to have boards that are going to look at and try to work some of that bias out. But we're here in Oklahoma. Try talking to ChatGPT about fossil fuels, and you'll get a very non-Oklahoma kind of spin on fossil fuels because of how ChatGPT and their engineers have kind of put some of those guardrails around. Another real big bias, and I know this sounds maybe a little disingenuous coming from an older white male, but if you were to put into Midjourney or DALL-E some of these image creations, give me a picture of a CEO, it's going to look like me or Dr. Crick. It's going to be an older white male because that's the data that it was trained on. And the problem is some ethnicities have been over-sexualized. And so whenever you put in some of those terms, you tend to get people that look a certain way. And so there are absolutely biases throughout. As far as moving into like Skynet or some scary things like that, I think we're probably a ways away from that. For sure. But it does start to get scarier and scarier, especially if we move into a spot where we're allowing AI to start to make decisions for us, and which happens already. But if it gets much wider, there's concerns there for sure.
I'll jump.
I'm getting time cues, so we have 3 minutes, but that's what I want to go to because we're getting so lazy, and I'm including myself in the we're getting so lazy. Now, do we want to have computers do our thinking for us? That, Chris, you were talking about kids maybe, I don't have to write this essay. Well, they're giving up that lesson on learning how to write an essay and learning from that process. That's the scary part.
It can be. And these are, but on the other hand, the kinds of things that these language models can produce, hopefully, will free up people to spend more of their time doing less rote text generation. And that's the hopeful possibility. But, it is absolutely true that we are not as good at mental arithmetic in a world where we all have calculators in our pocket than we were 75 years ago. Is that a loss to humanity? It doesn't really feel like it. But yes, we will probably, as these models get better, we'll probably lose some of the sort of rote text generation skills that we once had.
Right. Like we used to be able to remember phone numbers.
That's right.
Took me years to memorize my husband's. I finally got it down. So yeah, that's a little scary to me. Well, I'm going to ask our producer, Reese, not to lose your numbers, to keep them on tap, because I think I'd like to have you guys back. There's so much more to talk about with this burgeoning technology that I had, apparently everyone's using it. I had no idea it existed. Shock. But I find it fascinating. And we're going to talk more in the future, hopefully, about regulation and latest developments. Thank you both for your time and sharing your information and your insights with all of Oklahoma.
I very much appreciate it.
Appreciate it.